The gleaming showroom of premier luxury motors stood as a testament to success in downtown Atlanta. Polished vehicles worth more than most people's annual salaries lined the floors, their surfaces reflecting the warm Georgian sunlight that streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Among these mechanical masterpieces walked a man in an unassuming gray hoodie and worn jeans, his fingers trailing along the smooth contours of a midnight black Mercedes-AMG. Robert Chen, the dealership's top salesman, watched the casually dressed man with barely concealed disdain. In his 10 years of selling luxury vehicles, Chen had developed what he considered an infallible sense for genuine buyers. This man, with his casual attire and quiet demeanor, didn't fit the profile. Still, company policy required him to acknowledge all potential customers. "Can I help you find something?" Chen's tone carried a hint of dismissal as he approached, his designer suit creating a stark contrast against the customer's modest attire. The man smiled warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Yes, actually. I'm interested in the new S-Class lineup. I'd like to see your top-tier models." Chen's lip curled slightly. "Sir, these vehicles start at $150,000. Perhaps I could direct you to our pre-owned section? Or maybe a more suitable dealership down the street?" The man's expression remained unchanged, though something flickered in his eyes. "I'm quite aware of the pricing. I'd still like to see the S-Class models, particularly the AMG variants." "Listen," Chen stepped closer, lowering his voice condescendingly, "I don't want to waste either of our time. These vehicles require certain financial qualifications. We can't just let anyone test drive them." Other customers in the showroom began to take notice of the exchange, some watching with uncomfortable expressions, others pretending not to see. A younger salesman shifted nervously behind his desk, clearly aware that something was amiss. The man in the hoodie stood quietly for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "You know, it's interesting. I've been planning to upgrade the entire executive fleet for my company. That's 20 vehicles. But perhaps you're right, I should take my business elsewhere." Chen's smirk faltered slightly. "Your company?" "Yes. I'm Anthony Richardson, CEO of Richardson Global Technologies. We're opening our new headquarters 2 blocks from here next month. I thought it would be nice to support a local business, but clearly, I was mistaken." The color drained from Chen's face as recognition finally dawned. Richardson Global Technologies was a Fortune 500 company, and its expansion into Atlanta had been front-page news for months. The man standing before him wasn't just any CEO, he was one of the most influential business leaders in the Southeast, known for his philanthropic work and commitment to community development. "Mr. Richardson, I had no idea." "Please, let me explain." Chen stammered, his previous arrogance evaporating like morning dew under a harsh sun. Anthony held up his hand, silencing the flustered salesman. "No explanation needed. Your initial reaction told me everything I need to know about this establishment. I'll be taking my business to a dealership that treats all customers with respect, regardless of their appearance." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Mr. Chen? You might want to review your company's non-discrimination policies. I'll be having a word with your corporate office about this interaction." The showroom had fallen completely silent. Other customers watched as Anthony walked calmly toward the exit, his dignity intact. Just before reaching the door, he turned back to address the young salesman who had been watching the exchange. "Young man, success isn't measured by how you treat people you think are important, it's measured by how you treat everyone. Remember that." As the door closed behind Anthony, Chen stood rooted to the spot, the weight of his mistake crushing down on him. He had just cost his dealership a multi-million-dollar fleet sale, but more importantly, he had revealed his own prejudices in the most public and humiliating way possible. Word of the incident spread quickly through Atlanta's business community. By the end of the day, the dealership's corporate office had received multiple calls about the exchange, and Chen's future at Premier Luxury Motors looked increasingly uncertain. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson's reputation for grace under pressure and commitment to equal treatment only grew stronger, proving that true power lies not in the ability to humiliate others, but in the choice to maintain dignity in the face of prejudice. The following morning, the atmosphere at Premier Luxury Motors was thick with tension. Chen sat in the break room, his usually pristine suit slightly wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes betraying a sleepless night. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with notifications since videos of his interaction with Anthony Richardson had begun circulating on social media. "Mr. Chen, Ms. Williams wants to see you in her office immediately." The receptionist's voice carried none of its usual warmth. Chen's heart sank as he made his way to the regional manager's office, past colleagues who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Patricia Williams, the regional manager, sat behind her desk with a stern expression that had earned her the nickname, Steel Pat, among employees. Today, that steeliness was directed squarely at Chen. "Sit down," she commanded, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "I've spent the morning dealing with the fallout from your actions yesterday. Corporate is breathing down my neck. We've lost the Richardson Global Technologies fleet deal worth approximately $3.2 million, and our reputation is taking a serious hit on social media." Chen shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Ms. Williams, I can explain." "Save it," she cut him off. "I've watched the security footage. There's no explaining away what happened. But here's what's interesting, I just got off the phone with Mr. Richardson himself." Chen's head snapped up in surprise. "He's not calling for your termination, which, quite frankly, is more mercy than you deserve. Instead, he's proposed something different." Patricia leaned forward, sliding a document across her desk. "He's offering to conduct a series of diversity and inclusion workshops at our dealership, personally led by him and his team. He believes this incident could be transformed into a learning opportunity for the entire company." Chen stared at the document, his hands trembling slightly as he picked it up. The workshop outline detailed a comprehensive 6-week program focused on unconscious bias, cultural competency, and professional ethics. "But," Patricia continued, her voice sharp, "your continued employment here comes with conditions. First, you'll be suspended without pay for 2 weeks. Second, you'll take a significant reduction in commission percentage for the next 6 months. Third, you'll not only participate in these workshops but also assist in organizing them. Finally, you'll work with our HR department to develop new customer service protocols that emphasize respectful treatment of all potential customers." Outside the office, the showroom was unusually quiet. The morning's first customers wouldn't arrive for another hour, but the sales team had gathered for their daily meeting. The young salesman from yesterday, David, led the discussion about implementing immediate changes to their customer approach protocols. "We can't just wait for the workshops to begin," David addressed his colleagues with newfound confidence. "We need to start making changes now. Yesterday taught us that we never know who might walk through those doors, but more importantly, it shouldn't matter who they are. Every person deserves respect." Meanwhile, across town at Richardson Global Technologies, Anthony sat in his office, reviewing the workshop proposal he'd sent to Premier Luxury Motors. His assistant knocked on the door, entering with a stack of messages. "Sir, we've received calls from several other companies requesting similar workshops. Your handling of yesterday's incident has sparked quite a conversation in the business community." Anthony nodded thoughtfully. "Schedule a meeting with our community outreach team. I think we've found an unexpected opportunity to create real change." The story of what happened at Premier Luxury Motors continued to spread, but not in the way Chen had feared. Instead of focusing solely on his discriminatory behavior, many were talking about Richardson's response, how he had chosen education over punishment, transformation over retribution. Local news outlets picked up the story, highlighting how a potentially destructive incident was being turned into a catalyst for positive change. Richardson's workshop program was gaining attention from other businesses in the area, all eager to prevent similar incidents in their own establishments. For Chen, the coming weeks would prove transformative. The man who had prided himself on judging customers by their appearance was about to learn valuable lessons about character, dignity, and the true meaning of success. His journey from disgrace to redemption was just beginning, and unknowingly, he would become an example of how confronting one's prejudices could lead to profound personal growth. As the sun set on another day in Atlanta, both the dealership and its employees stood on the brink of change. The showroom's gleaming vehicles still caught the last rays of sunlight, but now they seemed to reflect something more: the possibility of transformation, the power of forgiveness, and the importance of treating every person who walked through those doors with the dignity they deserved. The first workshop day arrived with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness at Premier Luxury Motors. The showroom had been transformed into a temporary conference space, with chairs arranged in a semicircle facing a projection screen. Chen sat in the back row, his usual confidence replaced by quiet introspection. Anthony Richardson walked in precisely at 9 a.m., dressed in a casual blue button-down and slacks. The room fell silent as he made his way to the front, carrying nothing but a tablet and a warm smile that somehow made everyone, even Chen, feel a little more at ease. "Good morning, everyone," Anthony began, his voice carrying naturally through the space. "Before we start, I want to make something clear: I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here because I believe in the power of growth and understanding. We've all carried prejudices at some point in our lives. The question is, what do we do when we recognize them?" The workshop began with a simple exercise. Anthony asked everyone to write down their first impressions of various customer photos, then challenged them to question where these assumptions came from. As people shared their thoughts, the discomfort in the room gradually transformed into genuine dialogue. During the lunch break, Chen found himself alone at a table when Anthony unexpectedly sat down across from him. The tension was palpable. "You haven't said much today," Anthony observed, unwrapping his sandwich. Chen stared at his untouched food. I don't know what to say. Every time I think about that day, I feel ashamed." "Shame can be paralyzing," Anthony replied thoughtfully. "Or it can be transformative. The choice is yours." He paused, then shared something unexpected. "You know, early in my career, I was passed over for a promotion. The feedback I received was that I didn't fit the company image. It hurt, but it taught me something valuable: success isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about helping create a world where such judgments become obsolete." Meanwhile, across town, the story continued to create ripples. The local Chamber of Commerce had reached out to Richardson Global Technologies about expanding the workshop program to other businesses. Local news stations were running features on corporate responsibility and unconscious bias in the workplace. Back at the dealership, the afternoon session took an unexpected turn when David, the young salesman, shared a personal story. "When I first started here," he admitted, "I used to let the senior salespeople cherry-pick customers based on appearance. I never questioned it because that's just how things were done. But watching Mr. Richardson that day, how he handled the situation with such dignity, it made me realize we weren't just losing sales, we were losing our humanity." His words struck a chord with many in the room. Other employees began sharing similar experiences, times when they had either witnessed or participated in prejudiced behavior without questioning it. The conversation evolved into a deeper discussion about workplace culture and personal responsibility. As the day progressed, Chen found himself increasingly engaged. During a role-playing exercise, he volunteered to demonstrate how he would handle a similar situation differently. His hands shook slightly as he stood before his colleagues, but as he worked through the scenario, something shifted in his understanding. "I used to think I was protecting the dealership's interests," he admitted during the debrief. "But I was actually hurting everyone: the customers, the company, and myself. Success built on prejudice isn't success at all." After the workshop, Patricia Williams called an impromptu meeting with her management team. The day's events had sparked ideas for systematic changes in their hiring and training procedures. They began drafting new guidelines that would emphasize character and customer service skills over traditional sales metrics. That evening, as the cleaning crew prepared to close up, Chen remained at his desk, reviewing the day's materials. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to his entire team. Today was just the beginning of our journey. I've been in sales for over a decade, but I realize now that I've been measuring success all wrong. Starting tomorrow, I'd like to share some of my experience with our newer team members, but this time focusing on what truly matters, treating every person who walks through our doors with dignity and respect. The email remained unsent in his drafts as Chen continued refining his thoughts. Outside his office window, the Atlanta skyline glittered in the darkness. The city was changing, and so was he. The journey wouldn't be easy, but for the first time since the incident, he felt something new, not shame or regret, but hope. In his own office across town, Anthony Richardson reviewed the day's progress with his team. The workshop had exceeded expectations. But more importantly, it had revealed something powerful: the capacity for change when people are given the opportunity to learn and grow rather than simply being punished for their mistakes. Schedule follow-up sessions for next month, he instructed his assistant. And let's prepare materials for other businesses that have expressed interest. What happened at Premier Luxury Motors doesn't have to be an isolated incident, it can be the beginning of a larger transformation. As the day drew to a close, both men, in their separate offices, reflected on how a moment of discrimination had unexpectedly become a catalyst for positive change. The story wasn't just about a luxury car dealership anymore, it was about the possibility of transformation, both personal and professional, and the ripple effects that one moment of choosing education over anger could create in a community. 3 weeks into the workshop program, Premier Luxury Motors had undergone a visible transformation. The changes weren't just in policies or procedures, they were evident in the energy of the showroom itself. Gone was the subtle hierarchy among salespeople about who got to approach which customers. Instead, a new system of rotating floor assignments ensured everyone had equal opportunities with all clients. Chen, who had once dominated the sales floor with his aggressive approach, was discovering a different kind of success. On this particular morning, he watched as an elderly couple in casual clothes wandered through the showroom, admiring a modest C-Class Mercedes. "Good morning," he greeted them warmly, his approach notably different from his old style. "Would you like someone to tell you more about this model?" The couple seemed surprised by his genuine warmth. "Oh, we're just looking," the woman said hesitantly. "Our granddaughter is graduating medical school next month, and we've been saving for years to surprise her. But maybe this is too ambitious." 2 months ago, Chen might have made assumptions about their budget and steered them toward pre-owned vehicles. Instead, he pulled up a chair for the grandmother, who'd mentioned her arthritis was bothering her. "Tell me about your granddaughter," he said, genuinely interested. As they shared their story of her hard work through medical school, Chen listened attentively, occasionally offering relevant information about different models that might suit a young doctor's needs. Meanwhile, across town, Anthony Richardson was meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. The workshop program had attracted attention from businesses across various industries, from retail to real estate. The incident at Premier Luxury Motors could have ended with a simple complaint or lawsuit, Anthony explained to the gathered business leaders. Instead, it's becoming a case study in how to transform workplace culture. We're not just talking about diversity training, we're talking about fundamental changes in how businesses interact with their communities. Back at the dealership, David had taken on a leadership role in implementing new training procedures for new hires. His office wall now displayed a framed quote from the day of the incident: "Success isn't measured by how you treat people you think are important, it's measured by how you treat everyone." Patricia Williams was reviewing the monthly sales figures when something unexpected caught her eye. Despite concerns that the new approach might hurt business, their numbers told a different story. Customer satisfaction ratings had soared, and surprisingly, so had sales. The dealership was attracting a more diverse clientele, and positive word of mouth was bringing in customers from across the metro area. Later that afternoon, Chen closed the deal with the elderly couple for their granddaughter's car. As he watched them leave, happy tears in their eyes as they clutched the surprise delivery arrangement for graduation day, he felt a satisfaction that went beyond his commission. "You're different now," David observed, joining him by the window. "In a good way." Chen nodded, still watching the couple walk to their car. "You know what I realized? All those years, I thought I was being selective with customers. Really, I was just limiting myself. Every person who walks through that door has a story, and now I actually get to hear them." The dealership's transformation was becoming a topic of discussion in business circles across Atlanta. Other luxury car dealerships, initially skeptical, were now reaching out to learn more about the changes implemented at Premier. The story had even caught the attention of automotive industry publications, with one magazine planning a feature on how diversity initiatives could transform high-end retail. That evening, Anthony received an unexpected email from Chen. It was a proposal for a mentorship program where experienced salespeople would guide newcomers in customer service excellence, with a special emphasis on avoiding bias and prejudice. The program would pair senior staff with junior employees from different backgrounds, fostering understanding while sharing valuable sales expertise. "The next generation of sales professionals shouldn't have to unlearn the biases we carried," Chen wrote. "They should start with the right foundation." Anthony smiled as he read the email. This was exactly the kind of initiative he had hoped to inspire, change coming from within, driven by those who had experienced transformation firsthand. The elderly couple's granddaughter's graduation was approaching, and Chen had worked with the dealership's marketing team to arrange something special. They planned to document the surprise presentation of her car, not as a promotional tool, but as a testament to the joy that could come from looking past first impressions and truly serving all customers. Patricia was preparing for a regional managers meeting where she would present Premier's transformation story. Her presentation included hard data, increased sales, improved customer satisfaction, higher employee retention, and a more diverse customer base. But more importantly, it included stories of connections made, assumptions challenged, and lives touched. As she practiced her presentation, she paused at a slide showing the showroom floor on a busy Saturday. The photo captured a diverse mix of customers and salespeople, all engaged in genuine conversations. It was a far cry from the rigid, prejudiced atmosphere that had prevailed just months before. In the employee break room, a new tradition had emerged. Staff members would share their moment of the week, a story about a meaningful customer interaction that taught them something new. These stories were collected in a journal, creating a living document of the dealership's evolution. Chen's latest entry read, "Today, I helped a couple surprise their granddaughter with her first luxury car. 2 months ago, I might have dismissed them based on their appearance. Instead, I got to be part of one of the most meaningful purchases of their lives. They weren't just buying a car, they were investing in their granddaughter's dreams. This is what real success feels like." The sun was setting over Atlanta as Chen finished his journal entry. Through the showroom windows, he could see the city skyline, a reminder of how one incident in a luxury car dealership had sparked a movement of change that was still growing. Tomorrow would bring new customers, new stories, and new opportunities to prove that success in business could go hand in hand with treating every person with dignity and respect. The morning of the medical school graduation dawned bright and clear over Atlanta. Chen arrived at the dealership early, making sure every detail was perfect for the day's special delivery. The new Mercedes C-Class sat in the center of the showroom, its silver paint gleaming under the lights, a subtle blue bow positioned perfectly on the hood. "Everything needs to be perfect," Chen muttered, adjusting the bow for the third time. The elderly couple had shared their granddaughter's entire journey, working part-time through pre-med, the late-night study sessions, the community clinic volunteering. This wasn't just a car delivery, it was the culmination of years of dreams and hard work. David walked in, carrying coffee for the team. "You know, a few months ago, you would have been more concerned about your commission than the bow placement," he observed with a smile. Chen paused, straightening his tie. "A few months ago, I wouldn't have known their story. I wouldn't have cared to ask." The transformation at Premier Luxury Motors had caught the attention of the automotive industry's leading publication, Auto Market Quarterly. A journalist and photographer were scheduled to document the day's events as part of their feature on changing business practices in luxury sales. Anthony Richardson had also chosen to attend the delivery personally. His workshop program had now expanded to 30 other businesses across Atlanta, but he made time for this particular event. As he explained to the journalist, sometimes, you need to witness the full circle of change to appreciate its impact. The morning passed slowly as Chen finalized the arrangements. The grandparents had coordinated with the medical school to make the surprise presentation part of their granddaughter's post-graduation celebration. Every detail had been carefully planned. At 2 p.m., the showroom began filling with selected guests. The elderly couple arrived, dressed in their finest clothes, their eyes shining with anticipation. The grandmother held an album of photos documenting their granddaughter's journey from her first day of kindergarten to her medical school acceptance letter. "We added something," she told Chen, showing him the newest addition, a photo of him with them the day they made the purchase. "You're part of our story now too." The moment grew closer. The dealership had arranged for a live video feed from the graduation ceremony to be displayed on the showroom screens. They watched as their granddaughter, Dr. Lisa Thompson, walked across the stage to receive her diploma. An hour later, a text arrived, they were on their way. The showroom lights dimmed slightly, and everyone took their positions. Chen stood with the grandparents near the car, his heart racing with an excitement he'd never felt from any previous sale. The doors opened, and Lisa walked in, still in her graduation robes, expecting only to meet her grandparents for photos. She froze at the sight of the gathered crowd, her eyes widening as they fell on the gleaming Mercedes. "Surprise, sweetheart," her grandmother called out, her voice thick with emotion. "We are so proud of you." Lisa's hands flew to her mouth as her grandfather explained how they'd been saving for years, how they'd wanted to give her something special to start her new life as a doctor. Chen watched as she hugged her grandparents, all three of them crying tears of joy. Then something unexpected happened. Lisa turned to Chen and hugged him too. "My grandparents told me how kind you were to them," she said. "Thank you for making this special for them." The Auto Market Quarterly journalist was frantically taking notes, but this wasn't just another story about car sales. This was about human connection, about looking past appearances to see the dreams and aspirations that bring people through your door. Later that evening, after the celebration had ended and the cleanup was complete, Chen sat in his office reflecting on the day. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to Anthony. "Today, I witnessed something I'll never forget. It wasn't just about selling a car or making a commission. It was about being part of a family's milestone moment. A few months ago, I might have dismissed this couple based on their appearance. I would have missed out on one of the most meaningful experiences of my career. The workshops didn't just change how we do business, they changed how we connect with people. Every customer who walks through our doors carries hopes, dreams, and stories. Our job isn't just to sell cars, it's to be part of those stories in a positive way." Anthony's reply came quickly, "This is exactly why we chose education over punishment. Real change happens when people don't just modify their behavior, but transform their perspective." The story of the graduation surprise spread quickly through Atlanta's business community. Other dealerships began reaching out, not just about sales training, but about creating meaningful connections with their communities. Patricia Williams used the event as a centerpiece in her presentation to the corporate office about the dealership's transformation. "We're not just selling luxury vehicles," she explained. "We're creating experiences that honor our customers' stories." The Auto Market Quarterly article, when published, bore the title, "Beyond the Sale: How One Dealership's Transformation is Reshaping Luxury Car Sales." The piece featured the graduation story prominently, but it went deeper, examining how challenging long-held assumptions could lead to both business success and personal growth. For Chen, the most significant change wasn't in his sales numbers, though they had improved, or his professional reputation, though it had been restored. The real transformation was in how he viewed success itself. Each sale was no longer just a transaction but an opportunity to be part of someone's important moment, to contribute to their story in a meaningful way. As he prepared to leave for the day, Chen passed the spot where the Mercedes had stood that morning. Tomorrow, another vehicle would occupy that space, waiting for its own story to unfold. But tonight, he savored the memory of 3 generations embracing, of dreams realized, and of barriers broken, all because he had learned to look past his prejudices and see the humanity in every customer who walked through those doors. 6 months after the incident that changed everything, Premier Luxury Motors had become a case study in corporate transformation. The showroom was hosting a different kind of event today, the first Inclusive Excellence in Automotive Sales conference, bringing together dealers from across the Southeast. Chen stood at the podium, a position he never expected to find himself in. The faces looking back at him included skeptical sales managers, curious executives, and eager young professionals, all drawn by the dealership's remarkable story of change. "A year ago," Chen began, his voice steady, "I thought I knew everything about selling luxury cars. I had the highest sales numbers in our region. But I didn't understand that success isn't just about closing deals, it's about opening doors for everyone who walks through them." The conference room was packed. Anthony Richardson sat in the front row, not as a speaker this time, but as an observer. His workshop program had evolved into something bigger than he'd imagined, with Premier Luxury Motors becoming its flagship success story. During the lunch break, a sales manager from Miami approached Chen. "I was skeptical when I came here," he admitted. "I thought all this inclusion talk was just PR spin. But your numbers don't lie. How did you actually make it work?" Chen led him to the showroom floor, where David was helping an elderly man in work clothes examine a top-of-the-line SUV. "Watch," Chen said quietly. David's approach was a masterclass in the new way of doing business. He listened more than he talked, asked thoughtful questions about the customer's needs, and showed genuine interest in his story. It turned out the man owned a successful construction company and was looking to upgrade his entire fleet. "See?" Chen turned to the Miami manager. "A year ago, someone might have judged him by his clothes. We would have lost not just one sale, but an entire fleet deal. More importantly, we would have lost the chance to be part of his success story." Back in the conference room, Patricia Williams was sharing the concrete results of their transformation. Customer satisfaction scores had risen by 40%. Sales had increased by 35%. Employee turnover had dropped to its lowest level in a decade. But the most striking statistic was their customer base. It had become significantly more diverse, bringing in markets they had previously overlooked. The afternoon sessions focused on practical implementation. Chen and David had developed a comprehensive training program that went beyond traditional sales techniques. They called it story-first selling, an approach that emphasized understanding each customer's journey before discussing any vehicle. During one session, a video played on the large screen. It showed various customer moments from the past 6 months: the medical school graduate with her new car, a first-generation business owner celebrating his company's expansion with a fleet purchase, a retired teacher buying her dream car after 30 years of service. Anthony Richardson took the stage for the closing keynote. "When I walked into Premier Luxury Motors that day in casual clothes, I wasn't testing anyone. I was genuinely interested in their vehicles. But what happened next revealed both a problem and an opportunity. We could have responded with anger, with lawsuits, with public shaming. Instead, we chose to build bridges. The impact of Premier's transformation had rippled beyond the automotive industry. Local businesses had started sending their sales teams for training. The Chamber of Commerce had created an annual award for inclusive business practices, with Premier Luxury Motors as its first recipient. Chen's personal transformation had caught the attention of business schools. He was now a regular guest speaker, sharing his journey from top salesman to inclusive sales leader. His story resonated particularly with young professionals struggling to balance profit motives with ethical considerations. After the conference, Chen found himself sharing coffee with Anthony in the dealership's customer lounge. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Chen asked. Anthony smiled, watching the diverse mix of customers and salespeople on the showroom floor. "Actually, yes. That's why I chose this path. Real change doesn't come from punishment, it comes from people seeing a better way forward." The story had even reached the automotive industry's governing body, which was now developing new guidelines for inclusive sales practices, using Premier's transformation as a model. Trade magazines that had initially dismissed the changes as temporary PR moves were now running in-depth features on the business benefits of inclusive practices. Later that evening, after the conference attendees had left, Chen received an unexpected email. It was from a young salesman at another dealership who had attended the conference. "I've been in this industry for 2 years, and I've always felt uncomfortable with how we profile customers. Today showed me there's a better way. Thank you for having the courage to share your story of change. It's given me the courage to start similar conversations at my dealership." As Chen prepared to leave for the day, he passed the wall where David's favorite quote hung. Below it, they had added a new one: "Every person who walks through these doors carries a story. Our privilege is to become part of it." The next morning would bring new customers, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove that success in luxury sales could be achieved without compromising dignity or respect. The transformation that began with one humbling incident had grown into a movement, changing not just how cars were sold, but how businesses viewed their role in creating a more inclusive society. Outside, the Atlanta skyline glittered in the evening light. Chen remembered standing in this same spot 6 months ago, filled with shame and uncertainty. Now, he stood there with purpose, knowing that his biggest success wasn't in his sales numbers, but in helping to create a space where every customer's story mattered, regardless of how they looked or what they wore. 1 year after the incident that transformed Premier Luxury Motors, the dealership was hosting its most significant event yet. The National Automotive Dealers Association had chosen their showroom as the venue to announce new industry-wide guidelines for inclusive sales practices. The story that began with a moment of prejudice had evolved into a catalyst for national change. The showroom buzzed with energy as automotive executives, journalists, and industry leaders gathered. Chen, now the dealership's director of inclusive sales training, stood near the back, observing the scene with quiet satisfaction. A year ago, he couldn't have imagined being here, let alone being celebrated as a pioneer of change. "Nervous about your speech?" David asked, joining him with 2 cups of coffee. He had recently been promoted to sales manager, his innovative approach to customer service earning him recognition across the region. "Not nervous," Chen replied, accepting the coffee. "Just reflecting. You know, Dr. Thompson stopped by yesterday." The young doctor who had received the surprise Mercedes at her graduation had become a regular visitor. Her grandparents' story had become part of the dealership's training material, a powerful reminder of the importance of looking beyond first impressions. "She's doing amazing work at the community health center," Chen continued. "Said the car makes those long shifts a little more bearable. It's strange to think that if I'd acted differently that day, we would have missed being part of her story." The formal presentation began with Anthony Richardson taking the stage. His workshop program had expanded to over 200 businesses nationwide, but Premier Luxury Motors remained special, the place where it all began. A year ago, Anthony addressed the crowd. A moment of discrimination could have ended with anger and division. Instead, it became the starting point of a journey that has transformed not just one dealership, but an entire industry's approach to customer service. The new industry guidelines were comprehensive. They included mandatory training in unconscious bias, customer service standards that emphasized respect and dignity for all, and metrics that went beyond sales numbers to measure customer experience and community impact. Patricia Williams presented the dealership's yearly results, which had exceeded all expectations. Sales were up 45% from the previous year. Customer satisfaction scores were at record highs. But most importantly, their customer base had become truly diverse, reflecting the full spectrum of Atlanta's communities. Success in luxury sales isn't about guessing who can afford our vehicles, Patricia explained. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels welcome to pursue their dreams. During the lunch break, Chen found himself in conversation with a group of dealers from across the country. They were particularly interested in the story-first selling approach he and David had developed. The old way was about qualifying customers, Chen explained. Our way is about qualifying ourselves. Are we worthy of being part of their story? Are we creating an environment where everyone feels respected and valued? The afternoon session featured a panel discussion on the future of luxury automotive sales. Industry experts predicted that dealerships that failed to embrace inclusive practices would struggle to compete in an increasingly diverse market. A touching moment came when the elderly couple who had bought their granddaughter's graduation gift made a surprise appearance. They shared how their experience had inspired them to become advocates for inclusive business practices in their own community. We weren't just buying a car, the grandmother explained, her voice filled with emotion. We were investing in our granddaughter's future. Every customer who walks through these doors carries similar dreams and aspirations. They deserve to be heard and respected. The day's events were being live-streamed to dealerships across the country. Comments and questions poured in from sales professionals eager to learn how they could implement similar changes in their own showrooms. As the formal presentations concluded, Anthony announced the creation of the Premier Excellence in Inclusive Sales Scholarship. The program would provide training and mentorship to aspiring sales professionals from underrepresented communities, ensuring that the industry's future leaders would reflect the diversity of its customers. Later that evening, as the crowd thinned, Chen found a quiet moment with Anthony in the customer lounge. I never properly thanked you, Chen said, for giving me a second chance that day. Anthony smiled. You know what's interesting? That day, I wasn't just testing how you'd treat me. I was testing how I'd respond to discrimination. It would have been easy to react with anger, to demand your firing, to shame the dealership publicly. But change doesn't come from punishment, it comes from transformation. The next morning, Chen arrived early to find a group of new sales trainees waiting. They were the first class of the Premier Excellence program, eager to learn the principles that had transformed the dealership. As he began the training session, Chen shared a personal moment. A year ago, I thought success in this business was about judging people quickly, about knowing who was worth our time. I was wrong. Success comes from understanding that every person who walks through these doors brings value, not just as a customer, but as a human being with dreams and aspirations. The training room walls now displayed photos from the past year, moments of joy, celebration, and connection. Each picture told a story of barriers broken, assumptions challenged, and lives touched. David joined the session, sharing his perspective on the transformation. We didn't just change how we sell cars, he explained to the trainees. We changed how we connect with people. Every interaction is an opportunity to be part of someone's journey. As the morning sun filled the showroom, Chen watched his trainees practice their customer approach. Each one brought their own unique perspective and background to the role, enriching the dealership's ability to serve its diverse community. The story of Premier Luxury Motors had become more than a tale of personal transformation or business success. It had become a blueprint for how businesses could thrive by embracing inclusion, dignity, and respect. The incident that could have ended in shame and division had instead sparked a movement that was reshaping an entire industry. Outside, Atlanta was waking up to another busy day. Chen smiled, knowing that somewhere in the city, someone was gathering their courage to walk into a luxury car dealership, carrying their dreams and aspirations. Thanks to the changes of the past year, they would find not judgment or prejudice, but understanding and respect. And that, he realized, was the greatest success story of all. 18 months after the transformative incident at Premier Luxury Motors, the dealership was preparing for a very special event. The showroom had been transformed once again, this time for the inaugural graduation ceremony of the Premier Excellence in Inclusive Sales program. 25 graduates from diverse backgrounds were about to become the next generation of luxury automotive sales professionals. Chen stood before a mirror in his office, adjusting his tie. On his desk sat a framed photo from that fateful day, a reminder of how a moment of prejudice had become the catalyst for widespread change. Next to it was the day's program, with his name listed as the keynote speaker. Ready for the big moment? David appeared in the doorway, now wearing the confident demeanor of a successful sales manager. His innovative training methods had become standard practice across the industry. "You know what's amazing?" Chen replied, turning from the mirror. "Today isn't just about these graduates. It's about every customer who'll walk through their doors in the future. We're not just changing careers, we're changing experiences." The showroom was filled with proud families, industry leaders, and community members. Anthony Richardson sat in the front row, his presence a reminder of how one person's response to discrimination could spark a movement of positive change. As Chen took the stage, he paused to take in the scene. The graduates represented every background imaginable, a living testament to the program's commitment to diversity. Among them was the son of the elderly couple who had bought their granddaughter's graduation car, inspired by his family's experience to enter the industry. 18 months ago, Chen began, his voice carrying across the hushed room, "I thought I knew everything about success in luxury sales. I had the highest numbers, the biggest commissions, and what I thought was the perfect formula for spotting real customers." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I was wrong. Success isn't about spotting the right customers, it's about being the right kind of person for every customer. Each person who walks through these doors carries dreams, aspirations, and stories. Our privilege is not just to sell cars, but to become part of those stories in a positive way." The impact of Premier's transformation had extended far beyond the automotive industry. Their story had become a case study in business schools, examining how addressing bias could lead to both ethical and financial success. The dealership's revenue had doubled, but more importantly, they had built deep connections with communities they once overlooked. During the ceremony, several graduates shared their own stories. One spoke about growing up believing certain careers weren't for people like him. Another described how the program had helped her overcome her own internalized biases about who belonged in luxury sales. Dr. Lisa Thompson, the medical school graduate whose car presentation had become a turning point in the dealership's journey, made a surprise appearance. She shared how her grandparents' experience had inspired her to implement inclusive practices in her own medical practice. "Every patient deserves to be treated with dignity and respect," she explained, "regardless of how they look or what they wear. This dealership taught me that transformation isn't just about changing policies, it's about changing perspectives." The ceremony reached its emotional peak when Anthony Richardson announced the expansion of the Premier Excellence program to 50 more cities across the country. What had started as a response to one incident had grown into a national movement for inclusive business practices. Change doesn't always come from grand gestures, Anthony addressed the graduates. Sometimes it comes from simple moments of choosing understanding over judgment, education over punishment, and growth over shame. Patricia Williams presented the dealership's latest initiative, a community partnership program that would provide transportation solutions to underserved neighborhoods. The program would include financial literacy workshops, automotive maintenance training, and career development opportunities. Success in business isn't just about profit margins, Patricia explained. It's about creating value for our entire community. Every person who walks through these doors should feel not just welcomed, but valued. After the ceremony, Chen found himself in conversation with a young graduate who reminded him of his younger self. "I used to think luxury sales was about keeping people out," the graduate admitted. "You've taught us it's about welcoming people in." The showroom gradually emptied as families and graduates departed to celebrate. Chen remained behind, walking through the space that had become more than just a car dealership. Each spot held a memory, where he had first met Anthony, where the elderly couple had surprised their granddaughter, where countless customers had found not just vehicles, but respect and dignity. David joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee, a ritual they had maintained through all the changes. "Remember when you thought this was the end of your career?" he asked with a smile. Chen laughed softly. "Instead, it was just the beginning. You know what I've learned? Success isn't a destination. It's a journey of constant growth and learning." As the sun set over Atlanta, casting long shadows through the showroom windows, Chen reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The dealership had not just survived a potentially devastating incident, it had transformed it into an opportunity for profound change. The next morning would bring new customers, new stories, and new opportunities to prove that success in business could be achieved while maintaining dignity and respect for all. The graduates of the Premier Excellence program would carry these lessons to dealerships across the country, creating ripples of change that would continue to spread. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Chen thought about all the people who would walk through these doors in the future, each carrying their own dreams, their own stories, their own potential. Thanks to one humbling moment and the choice to learn from it, they would find not judgment or prejudice, but understanding and respect. As he prepared to leave, Chen paused by the wall where their journey had begun. The quote that had started as a reminder now served as a promise to every customer: "Success isn't measured by how you treat people you think are important, it's measured by how you treat everyone." The story of Premier Luxury Motors had become more than a tale of personal redemption or business success. It had become a testament to the power of transformation, a reminder that change was possible when people chose understanding over judgment, growth over stagnation, and inclusion over exclusion. For Chen, David, and countless others, the journey would continue. But they moved forward with the knowledge that success in business could be achieved while maintaining dignity and respect for all. The incident that could have ended in shame had instead sparked a movement that would continue to reshape not just an industry, but the very definition of success itself.